The lights were intense, aimed straight at her face. The crowd clapped as she stepped onto the stage. Jennifer Lopez, glowing in a white jumpsuit that shimmered under the studio lights, gave her famous smile and waved to the audience. She had done this hundreds of times. It was supposed to be easy, sit down, answer some questions, promote the movie, leave. But tonight wasn't going to be easy. She sat across from the host, a popular late-night comedian known for mixing jokes with interviews. The cameras were rolling, the crowd was ready for fun. The host welcomed her with charm and energy. Jennifer nodded politely, laughing at his opening jokes. A clip from her new movie played on the screen. She watched it quietly, her smile fixed. But fading around the edges, she had been doing interviews for weeks. Now same questions, same jokes, same smiles. Behind her calm face was exhaustion, not just from travel or work, but from something heavier, a feeling that had built up for years. She wasn't just tired, she was done. The host leaned forward with a grin. "So, how many engagement rings is it now? I've lost count." The audience laughed. Jennifer's smile froze. He kept going. "I mean, it's kind of your thing, right? Music, movies, and men." That was the moment. Jennifer shifted slightly. In her seat, her eyes sharpened. For a second, everything in the studio seemed to slow down. "I've been doing this for over 30 years, she said, her voice calm but firm. "I've broken records, sold out tours, raised children, built an empire." The host blinked, caught off guard. "Hey, and still," she continued, "I sit here and get reduced to punchlines about my love life." The audience went silent. Jennifer's voice didn't rise. It didn't need to. "I've smiled through it all, pretending these jokes don't hurt. But tonight, I'm not in the mood to laugh about being disrespected again." The host tried to laugh it off. "Come on, Jen. It's all in fun. You know I love you." She shook her head, her expression tight. Love doesn't mean making someone the joke every time they sit in this chair. The crowd was no longer laughing. "I didn't come here to be mocked for my relationships. I came here to talk about my work. My worth." Then she said something strange. Something that didn't seem like a normal response. Something that would later shake governments and reopen locked files. "I'm tired of being reduced to a headline instead of a human being." And then she stood up. The host tried to calm her. The producers behind the camera signaled to cut. Didn't stop. She walked off the stage, her heels clicking like gunshots on the floor. The cameras kept rolling until the screen faded to black. The internet caught fire. Clips of the outburst were posted within minutes. News anchors debated what had happened. Was she having a breakdown? Was it staged? Was she finally speaking her truth? But far away from the noise. In a quiet office in Geneva, one man watched the video on repeat. He wasn't interested in the gossip. He was part of an independent international watchdog group, a small team that tracked global influence campaigns and secret government propaganda operations. They worked in shadows, collecting pieces. The world missed. That final sentence, "I'm tired of being reduced to a headline instead of a human being," wasn't new to him. He had seen it once before, years ago, buried deep in a classified document from the early 2000s. It was part of a report about a U.S.-led soft power campaign in Central America. Back then, the United States was trying to influence elections in unstable countries. Not through soldiers or threats, but through culture. Pop stars, athletes, actors, they were used like chess pieces. Celebrities unknowingly became symbols of American success, hope, and freedom. They were sent to perform, to speak, to smile. All carefully planned to shift public opinion. And there, in that report, was a heavily redacted name. Only initials remained. JL, the phrase from Jennifer's interview, was nearly identical to. A warning listed in that file? He picked up the phone. Thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., a senator received a message. She remembers. In New York. A journalist named Nora Hadid opened her encrypted inbox and found a new leak. a heavily redacted file tied to cultural influence asset JL-2002. It had been sent anonymously. The message included only one line. She spoke. We listened. Now dig. Meanwhile, Jennifer sat alone in a car, staring out the window as the city lights passed by. Her manager begged her to release a statement, to say it was just a misunderstanding. To apologize, she refused. I've hidden the truth long enough, she whispered. She knew what she was doing when she said those words. She knew the cameras would catch it. She had waited years for the right moment, the right phrase, the right place. This wasn't a breakdown. It was a warning. And someone, somewhere, had just heard it. The story wasn't about a celebrity anymore. It was about a secret. And secrets, once spoken, don't stay quiet for long. The world reacted fast. Newsrooms from Los Angeles to London scrambled to dissect every second of the interview clip. Analysts debated her tone. Celebrities posted messages of support. Hashtags trended for days. But buried beneath the noise, something far more serious was happening, not in the headlines, but in encrypted chats and locked rooms. In a basement office in Washington, D.C., Senator Grace Mallory sat in silence, staring at a paused frame of Jennifer Lopez's interview. The image on the screen showed the exact moment Jennifer stood up. The senator didn't care about celebrity gossip. What she saw was something else. An old code. Years ago, Senator Mallory had served on the Oversight Subcommittee for Psychological Operations. During the early 2000s, a program known as Project Halo used American entertainers as cultural amplifiers in international diplomacy. The goal was to influence foreign populations by inserting carefully scripted messages through celebrity appearances. The program was denied by every administration since, buried under decades of denial and redactions. But Mallory remembered. She picked up her secure line and called a contact at the Bureau of Political Integrity. She's activating something, Mallory said. And if it's what I think it is, we're about to have a serious problem. Meanwhile, in New York, investigative journalist Nora Hadid leaned over her desk, scanning the leaked file she had received the night before. Her office window faced a skyline soaked in red from the setting sun. The document was fragmented, clearly copied from a larger classified file. But the details were chilling. Operation Halo Asset JL-2002 assignment. Positive cultural influence during presidential elections in El Salvador. Engagements, press tours, performances, private diplomatic dinners. Status: compromised, terminated. Subject memory suppressed via controlled PR narratives. It was nonsense, wasn't it? The idea that a pop star like Jennifer Lopez had been used in political manipulation, but the language was too specific. And the phrase she spoke on live TV was almost verbatim from this document. Nora picked up her phone and called her editor. I think there's something huge here. Jennifer Lopez might have been part of a U.S. psychological operation 20 years ago, and now she's waking up. Back in Los Angeles, Jennifer was off-grid. Her team had been told to cancel all upcoming appearances. Paparazzi circled her neighborhood. But she had left through a private entrance and checked into a secure hotel under an alias. She sat on the floor, cross-legged, staring at a series of old photographs she had kept hidden for years. One of them showed her on stage in San Salvador in 2002, surrounded by political banners she hadn't understood at the time. Another was of her at a private dinner with men in suits, men who weren't from the entertainment world. She remembered being told they were government liaisons. At the time, it felt strange, but she was young, eager, and grateful for the opportunity. But over time, memories surfaced. Not full ones, just flashes. Questions she was told not to ask. Interviews that were canceled. Mentions of her involvement in international programs that were quickly retracted. And then, it's the worst memory. A man's voice whispering, if you ever speak about this, they won't just come after you. They'll rewrite you. For years, she believed, she imagined it, that she had watched too many movies. But now, everything was different. The moment she spoke on Jimmy Kimmel's show, she had made her move. Not just to defend herself, but to send a signal, a call to those who still remembered the truth. And someone had heard it in Geneva. The watchdog group, known as Cordis, released an encrypted report on the dark web. Op Halo asset activated. Confirmed signal received. Code headline-human. The post sent shockwaves through circles that didn't speak in public. Intelligence officers from allied nations contacted their American counterparts. Was this real? Was a celebrity revealing classified information? Yes. How much did she remember? At the White House, a closed-door meeting was called between national security advisors and legacy agents from Project Halo. Some were retired. Some were now private contractors. All were summoned back with a simple message: contain the leak. By midnight, two things had happened. A full PR campaign began to discredit Jennifer Lopez. Articles questioning her mental health, sudden. Rumors of erratic behavior and even fabricated reports of substance abuse were quietly seeded across tabloids. An internal order was given to track all communications from known Halo-era journalists, psychologists, and handlers. But they had already lost control. Noura Hadid published her first article at 6:42 a.m. Eastern Time. It wasn't detailed, it didn't mention Project Halo by name, but it hinted. Was Jennifer Lopez used as a diplomatic weapon in the 2000s? The headline asked, it exploded across social media. Jennifer's face, already viral, was now surrounded by images from war-torn nations, campaign rallies, and diplomatic missions. Public interest turned into global obsession, but no one could reach her. Not her manager, not her co-stars, not even her family. She was in hiding, planning her next move. And somewhere in the quiet of her hotel room, she opened a notebook where she had written one word in capital letters. Remember? The storm had only begun. Rain drummed softly against the window of the hotel room where Jennifer Lopez sat alone. The outside world had erupted into noise, confusion, and debate. In here, it was quiet. She hadn't slept all night. The walls of the room felt too clean, too controlled, almost like a set. She didn't trust it. She pressed play again on the clip of her outburst. Her voice echoed. I'm tired of being reduced to a headline instead of a human being. It wasn't just a phrase, it was a key. And it had opened a door she could never close again. Across the country, Noura Hadid's story had gone viral. Mainstream media scrambled to catch up, but Noura was already 2 steps ahead. She had received another message, this time through a burner account that vanished the moment she clicked it. It was just an audio file. A voice distorted, cautious, said, Asset JL was never deactivated. She was redirected. The public narrative was the sedation. That same day, in an underground facility near Langley, a CIA division known only as Division Echo activated an emergency review. One of their agents, Mason DeWitt, opened a long-abandoned file. Jennifer Lopez's name was there, redacted but recognizable. She had been flagged as unstable asset category B. It's not because she was dangerous, but because she was too public, too famous to be silenced. The official recommendation had been redirect and reframe. That meant she was to be turned into a harmless celebrity fashion shows, romance headlines, pop albums. Keep her in the spotlight, but out of influence. But now she had broken the script. Mason looked over the file and muttered to himself. She was never supposed to remember. In New York, Noura was now being watched. She knew it. She had seen the same car parked outside her building for 3 nights. Her emails were acting strange, lagging, skipping, sometimes not delivering at all. She used an old typewriter for sensitive notes now. Paranoia wasn't paranoia anymore. It was self-defense. She made contact with a former intelligence officer who had worked on psychological influence campaigns during the Bush era. He had gone dark years ago. People said he disappeared to South America. But she found him living quietly under a new Name in Argentina. They met over a secure video call. He didn't show his face. What you're dealing with isn't just a celebrity scandal, he said. It's a collapse. Of what? She asked. Control, he replied. When an asset like her speaks freely, people start to question not just her past but their own reality. That's dangerous. Back in Los Angeles, Jennifer received a message slipped under her hotel door. No one had knocked. No one had seen who delivered it. The envelope contained a single photo. It showed her at 23 years old, seated at a table with 5 men in suits. She didn't recognize their faces, but she remembered the table. It's the same one where they told her, "You're a symbol now. The world needs symbols." On the back of the photo were 2 words, "He's alive." She stared at it for a long time. She hadn't heard that name in 2 decades. Miguel Reyes. He was the only person during her Central America tour who ever warned her something wasn't right. A journalist, local, too smart for his own safety. After one interview, where he asked her about government funding behind her concerts, he disappeared. The official story was a car crash. But now the photos suggested otherwise. She picked up her phone and called a secure contact she hadn't spoken to in 10 years, a former security consultant who had once helped her avoid a stalker. His name was Ethan Rourke, ex-military, quiet, unshakable. She told him she needed to find someone fast. "What's his name?" Ethan asked. "Miguel Reyes." There was a pause. "You're not going to like what I find," he said quietly. "I already don't." Meanwhile, the Senate Intelligence Committee met behind closed doors. Senator Grace Mallory was present. Along with representatives from the NSA and CIA, they had received unconfirmed reports that the phrase Jennifer used on live TV matched a known trigger phrase in old MK Ultra-inspired tests that were part of Project Halo's experimental phase. She was speaking in code. Who else was listening? One official raised a terrifying possibility. What if there were others like her? Unaware assets. Celebrities, influencers, media faces who don't even know they were programmed to say things when triggered. The room fell silent. Night, Jennifer sat with Ethan in the hotel suite. He had found something. Miguel Reyes was alive, but not in hiding. T was in Panama working as a ghostwriter for a nonprofit news agency under a false name. His digital footprint was erased. No social media. No official records. But he was still writing, still leaving clues. One of his articles from 6 months ago described a singer who unknowingly served a regime. The initials JL were hidden in the first letter of every paragraph. Jennifer stared at the screen, her breath caught in her throat. "He knew I'd come back to this," she said. Ethan nodded. "He was waiting for you, somewhere in Panama." Miguel Reyes looked out the window of a cafe, watching the rain fall. He folded a letter into an envelope and addressed it to New York. The only words written on the front were, "To the woman who finally woke up." The truth wasn't coming. It was already here. The plane touched down just past midnight. Jennifer Lopez, wearing a plain cap and sunglasses, stepped onto the tarmac in Panama City under tight security. No press, no fans, no lights, just the hum of engines and the click of boots. Ethan Rourke walked beside her, scanning the shadows. They had come quietly. Using private clearance through an old diplomatic contact Jennifer hadn't spoken to in years. Jennifer hadn't slept. Her mind was heavy with questions. What did Miguel know? Why had he vanished all those years ago? And why had her entire life, her fame, her career, even her pain been nothing more than the echo of someone else's agenda? In a small safe house just outside the city, Miguel Reyes waited. Older now, his once dark hair streaked with gray, but his eyes still sharp. He hadn't spoken to Jennifer since 2002. Back then, she was the rising star, and he was the too curious journalist. Their paths had crossed briefly once. But it had been enough. She entered the room slowly. No cameras, no handlers. Just silence and shared history. "You look tired," Miguel said. She gave a bitter smile. "You look alive." They sat across from each other. Ethan stood by the door. Alert. Miguel slid a folder across the table. "This is everything they didn't want you to know. Project Halo, your role. The suppression campaign. You weren't just used. You were programmed slowly, gently, publicly." Jennifer opened the folder. Inside were documents stamped with the Department of State's seal. Photos of her with diplomats she didn't remember meeting. And transcripts of her early interviews, marked, notated, edited. Miguel pointed to one page. "Look here. 2002 tours in El Salvador. Your interviews began to include certain talking points. Democracy, hope, American leadership. You didn't write those words? They were inserted by your media handlers, people tied to the U.S. Information and Cultural Affairs Bureau." She shook her head. "I remember those interviews. I believed what I said." "Sure you did," he said gently. "That's the brilliance of it. You were sincere. They just nudged you, like turning a mirror slightly to reflect a different truth." Jennifer closed the folder. Her hands trembled. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked. "Back then," Miguel looked away, "I tried. The night before my disappearance, I wrote a full expose, sent it to 3 major outlets. Not one published it. The next day, I was picked up, interrogated, told to disappear or be disappeared. I chose exile." Jennifer leaned back in her chair. Her fame had protected her, but also trapped her. Every relationship, every headline, every movie deal had been another layer of the mask. But now that mask was cracking. She looked at Miguel. "Why me?" "'Cause you could influence millions with a smile," he said. "Because they needed someone the world loved to carry messages without question. And because you were never supposed to ask why. Back in the U.S., Nora Hadid was being followed. She knew it. After publishing her second article this time, directly naming Operation Halo, her apartment had been broken into. Nothing stolen, just touched. Her books moved. Her drawers opened. A warning. But she kept writing. She had discovered a network of people, entertainers, journalists, even athletes who had experienced the same strange inconsistencies. Forgotten meetings, sudden cancellations, pressures to repeat phrases that didn't sound like their own. One actor told her, "I woke up one day and realized half of my public life was written by someone else." Nora was onto something massive. But the deeper she went, the more resistance she faced. Her editor had gone silent. Her articles were being quietly downranked by algorithms. Even her source in the intelligence community stopped responding. Still, she pressed on in Panama. Jennifer and Miguel planned their next step. "I want to go public," Jennifer said. "Not with anger, with proof, with the truth." Miguel hesitated. "You'll be destroyed. They'll turn the media against you, call you delusional, unstable. They've done it before," she said. "But I've lived in a prison, made of my own fame. Let them try. I'm not afraid of being reduced anymore. I want to be human again." Ethan stepped forward. "There's a way, but it has to be clean, controlled, one moment. One broadcast, no leaks beforehand, no room for them to spin it." Jennifer looked at him like, "What? Live interview?" Ethan said. "But not American TV. Something global, neutral. Maybe Al Jazeera, BBC. You tell your story without filters. One shot, one truth." Jennifer nodded slowly. Across the ocean in London, producer at the BBC's international desk received a secure email with a subject line that read, "The story behind the star." Inside was a simple message. "Jennifer Lopez is ready to speak. It's the real Jennifer. No handlers. It's no script. The world didn't know it yet. But history was about to pivot, and somewhere deep within a secure U.S. government facility, a red phone rang. A man picked it up and listened. "She remembers everything," the voice said. The man closed his eyes and gave a single order. Prepare phase 2. She cannot be allowed to reach that camera. Rain fell over London like a curtain of whispers. Inside the BBC headquarters near Portland Place, the newsroom hummed with a nervous tension that hadn't been felt in years. Something massive was about to happen, something the producers, reporters, and international staff couldn't quite define. All they knew was that Jennifer Lopez, the global icon, was in the building, and she wasn't here to promote a movie. She was here to break the world open. The interview was scheduled for 8 p.m. local time. It would air live across 32 countries. Simultaneously, uncut, unedited, no commercial breaks. No studio audience. Just a single camera, a neutral interviewer, and Jennifer Lopez under a harsh, honest light. In the hallway outside the studio, Jennifer sat with Ethan and Miguel. The documents, photographs, video evidence they had collected were already in the hands of Nora Hadid, who would publish the story the moment Jennifer went live. "You still have a chance to back out?" Miguel said quietly. Jennifer looked. At him, "I've been quiet for 20 years. I'm not dying silent." A BBC executive walked in holding a tablet. "We've been contacted by 3 U.S. officials," he said, "all strongly advising we delay the interview due to national security concerns. They're using coded language." "But the intent is clear." "And?" Jennifer asked. The executive smiled nervously. "We're a global network. We don't take orders from Washington." Jennifer stood and walked toward the studio door. In Washington, D.C., inside a soundproof bunker below Capitol Hill. Senator Grace Mallory watched the live feed from London begin to stream on a private monitor. She wasn't alone. Several intelligence heads sat behind her, silent and tense. They had failed to stop this. On screen, Jennifer appeared. No makeup, no jewelry, no costume. Just Jennifer. The interviewer greeted her briefly, then asked the first question, soft but direct. "Why are you here tonight?" Jennifer took a breath and began. "I was raised to believe that hard work and talent were enough. That if you stayed strong, stayed kind, and never gave up, you could be anything. I believed that. For years, I lived that. But I also lived something else. Something invisible. Something that controlled my choices, my relationships, my image, and my voice." She reached into her coat pocket and placed a small metallic badge on the table. It bore the seal of the U.S. Department of Cultural Affairs. 22 years ago, I was approached by individuals who claimed to represent the interests of cultural diplomacy. They said I could help change the world, not just with music or film, but with influence. They didn't call it manipulation. They called it guidance. The interviewer leaned in. "Are you saying you were used by the U.S. government as a political tool?" Jennifer nodded. "Yes, but not just me. There are others. Many of them still don't know. They think they're choosing their scripts, their songs, their causes. But every choice they've been given was designed. Every word they spoke on. Late-night TV, every tweet that went viral, it was all framed to support a global message." The interviewer's voice dropped. "What message?" "That the world is safer under control." Across the world, viewers sat frozen, in living rooms, cafes, offices, and cars. People watched with wide eyes as Jennifer began reading from one of Miguel's leaked documents. The language was technical, clinical, referring to influence assets, public perception guidance, and narrative construction units. But the meaning was clear. Governments were using celebrities as living propaganda, not through force, but through design. Ethan, watching from the control room, suddenly noticed something strange. One of the producers was whispering into a cum, then slipped away. He followed him through a back hallway. "What are you doing?" Ethan asked, catching him by the service exit. The man looked panicked. "I didn't know. I thought I was just relaying a message." Ethan grabbed his arm. "Who sent it?" But before the man could answer, a black van pulled up outside. Ethan ducked just in time. The side door of the van opened and a drone launched, heading straight for the broadcasting satellite above the BBC tower. Inside the studio, Jennifer was still speaking. ... We were never free. We were comfortable, distracted, entertained, but not free. At that exact moment, the screen flickered. Then it went black. Across the world, viewers shouted at their televisions. Radio signals dropped. Online streams failed. It's the BBC's emergency. Backup switched on within seconds, but by then, it was too late. The full message had only aired for 11 minutes. Enough to raise questions, not enough to provide answers. In a small hotel room in New York, Noura Hadid watched her screen go dark. Then she received a message from an anonymous number. Upload now. They won't stop her, but they'll try to erase you. She published the article. Every document, every photo, every name. Within an hour, it had been reposted 1 million times. In London, Jennifer was being moved to a secure location by BBC officials. The drone had missed its target, but the message was clear. She had crossed a line. Ethan met her at the underground car park. "They're not going to stop," he said. Jennifer looked calm, fierce. "Neither am I." And far away, in a data center deep under Fort Meade, Maryland, a new protocol activated. A red file opened on a black screen. Subject: Lopez. Jennifer status: breached protocol action. Contain or neutralize priority. Highest. The game had changed. Now it wasn't just about secrets. It was about survival. The streets of Berlin were colder than usual that night. It's the kind of cold that crept through walls in silence. Jennifer Lopez sat inside a dimly lit apartment on the eastern edge of the city, watching through slatted blinds as cars passed slowly. Beneath her window, she hadn't spoken in hours. Beside her, Ethan loaded a secure laptop. Across from them, Miguel scrolled through encrypted messages from contacts around the world, activists, journalists, even former intelligence officers. Since the interview in London, everything had changed. The world had seen just enough of the truth to begin asking dangerous questions, but not enough to understand the full picture. And now, Jennifer was being hunted. 3 governments had issued quiet advisories marking her as a security risk. Her team, her PR agency, even her closest friends, none of them returned calls. Her bank accounts had been frozen. Her digital history slowly wiped. It's the system. She was vanishing. "I'm not scared of being erased," Jennifer said finally, her voice calm, "but I won't let them erase what I said. Or what we know." Miguel looked up. "We have one more card to play." He placed a flash drive on the table. "This is the full archive. Every name, every operation, every celebrity who was influenced or managed. This isn't just about you anymore." Ethan's eyes narrowed. It never was. That drive, if released, would expose the architects of Project Halo, an underground psychological influence network run by a rogue arm of the U.S. Cultural Affairs Office. For 2 decades, they had steered global conversation through curated celebrity influence. From fashion trends to political opinions. From viral interviews to spontaneous breakdowns in the media, almost nothing had been random. Jennifer had been one of their most powerful assets until she broke the script. But before they could release the archive, they needed one more confirmation. A whistleblower from inside. Someone who could authenticate it all on live camera. That's why they came to Berlin. Noura Hadid had traced a lead, one of the original engineers of the program, a data analyst who had defected during the early phase of the project and gone into hiding under a new name. His name was Dr. Lucas Frey, a former psychologist turned algorithmic strategist. Frey had designed the neural narrative frameworks used to shape public perception. He knew every weakness in the system, and he had agreed to meet once. The location, an abandoned train station beneath the city, long closed to the public. At midnight, Jennifer didn't hesitate. The underground tunnels smelled of rust and damp stone. They moved carefully, Ethan scanning every corner, every sound. Jennifer walked at the center, who'd pulled low, his heart steady. They found Frey waiting alone on the platform bench. He looked nothing like the man in the old files. His beard was longer, his eyes tired but alert. He nodded at Jennifer. "You made it farther than I expected. You built the system," Jennifer said. "Now help us dismantle it." Frey hesitated, then took the flash drive from Miguel and plugged it into a secure reader. "It's real," he said. "This is everything. You could burn down half the media world with this. But once it's out, there's no undoing it." Jennifer looked at him, her voice low. "They tried to erase me. I won't let them erase everyone else too." Suddenly, a faint echo cut through the tunnel. Footsteps. Multiple. Ethan spun, pulling Jennifer behind a support beam. Miguel grabbed the laptop. Frey stood calmly. "They've found me. I was afraid of this." Small, tactical team, dressed in black, descended. From the north stairwell, silencers mounted. No markings. Not local police. Ethan drew his weapon. "We move." Now Frey handed the flash drive back. "Get it to Geneva, the World Human Rights Tribunal. They're the only ones left who might still listen." Jennifer nodded. Then Frey stepped forward, unarmed. "I'll distract them." Jennifer tried to stop him, but he shook his head. "I built this lie. Let me give you a chance to end it." As Frey walked into the open, his voice echoed down the platform. "This is Dr. Lucas Frey, former advisor to Project Halo. I have information A." Sharp, muffled sound cracked the air, then silence. Jennifer closed her eyes, grief clenching her chest. But they didn't stop. Ethan led them through a maintenance tunnel, up a ladder into the freezing Berlin night. By morning, the story would hit Geneva, the documents, the video of Frey's last words, the confession. Everything. And the world would be forced to choose: believe the myth or confront the machine. Behind the mask, back in Washington, Senator Grace Mallory watched the early reports trickle in. She turned to a younger aide. "Activate Chimera Protocol. Full blackout." This doesn't go any further. But it already had, because across social media, on encrypted networks, in whispered circles of artists, journalists, soldiers, and citizens, Jennifer Lopez's name wasn't just trending. It was a signal. She had become something more than an star. She had become the voice that shattered the silence, and the machine was starting to crack. The courtroom in Geneva was nothing like a movie set. No dramatic music, no echoing gavels. Just a large, sterile room with marble floors and cool white lights. But what made the air thick that day wasn't the room, it was the truth hanging. In it, Jennifer Lopez sat silently at the front, surrounded by members of the World Human Rights Tribunal. To her left, Miguel adjusted his tie, and Ethan stared forward like a man watching a chessboard full of traps. Every camera in the world was aimed at them. This wasn't just a testimony. It was history being carved live. The session was scheduled for 10 a.m., but people had been camping outside the UN office gates since before dawn. They came not for gossip or glamour, but because they felt something had cracked, something sacred. And Jennifer was the hammer that broke it. A translator's voice echoed, "Ms. Lopez, the floor is yours." Jennifer stood. Her eyes scanned the room: reporters, diplomats, tech company executives, cultural attaches from half the world. She had once sung in stadiums to millions, but never had her voice mattered more. "I'm not a politician," she said. "I'm not a scientist. I'm not a revolutionary. I'm just a woman who woke up too late and refused to go back to sleep." A few heads nodded. The rest held their breath. "For years, I was praised for my work, my movies, my music, my fashion. But behind every spotlight was a script. One, written by hands I never saw, backed by people I never met. I was told my fame was mine, but now I know it was engineered." She pulled a tablet from her bag, opened a file, and projected it onto the screen behind her. A matrix of names appeared. Not just entertainers, news anchors, social media influencers, athletes, activists. These are the individuals selected by a covert cultural program known as Project Halo. Not all of them knew. I didn't, not at first. A document slid onto the screen. A contract with vague clauses. Alignment coordination, narrative consistency, influence milestones. Legal words for quiet control. Gasps rose from the audience. Murmurs started. Jennifer didn't flinch. This system isn't about left or right. It's about silence. About keeping the world distracted by images while the real decisions happen, far away from public eyes. Ethan passed her another drive. This contains video testimony from Dr. Lucas Frey, the architect of Halo's behavioral algorithms. He was killed while helping us escape Berlin. But his last words are here. I promised I'd share them. The video played. Frey's face appeared on screen, eyes hollow but determined. If you're watching this, I'm dead. It means Jennifer Lopez kept going. I built something designed to manipulate billions, to make chaos look like culture. I regret it. I believe people deserve to know who's been holding the pen behind their stories. The room was completely still. When the video ended, Jennifer stepped forward again. I don't stand here as a victim. I stand here as proof that anyone can be weaponized and anyone can break free. A soft buzz rippled through the reporters. Cameras clicked. Messages were sent in bursts across networks. Then came the moment everyone feared. A representative from the U.S. State Department rose. He didn't deny the documents, didn't accuse her of lying. Instead, he said, Ms. Lopez, we appreciate your courage, but releasing this data compromises national interests. Do you understand what this could do to public trust? Jennifer's voice didn't shake. Double quotes? Yes. And that's exactly why I'm doing it. That sentence would echo across headlines worldwide. Outside, the crowds began chanting her name, not like a fan chant, like a rallying cry. Across social media, artists and influencers began stepping forward. They, too, had received strange contracts, bizarre requests, sudden disappearances from platforms when they asked too many questions. A movement was forming by nightfall. 10 governments had called for independent investigations into media influence. Programs, 3 major networks had suspended operations to review internal policies. Multiple cultural ambassadors resigned. But the fight wasn't over. Back in a black site data center in Northern Virginia, red warning signals blinked on terminals. The project was exposed, its foundations shaken. Senator Grace Mallory stood in a glass-walled room, watching a secure call light up. "Do we shut it down?" asked an analyst. Mallory stared at the feed of Jennifer's testimony, now being broadcast by international channels, pirate news sites, and even hijacked ad networks. "No," she said. "We change the name. We find new faces. The machine doesn't stop, it evolves." But for the first time in decades, the world had seen the gears turning, and they weren't afraid anymore. Jennifer left Geneva without fanfare. No security escort, no PR agent, just Ethan and Miguel at her side. On the plane, Ethan asked, "Do you think it's really over?" Jennifer looked out the window, where clouds floated above a silent earth. "No," she said. But it's finally real. And for the first time in her life, she wasn't a headline. She was the story.